Welcome back to another episode of The Favorite Teacher, where I interview people who are doing a great job creating educational content for their audience. And today I have my good friend, Eagan Heath, with me. So, Eagan, before we get started, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, I'm a partner at a marketing agency. We're called Asymmetric Marketing, ASYM And, I really got started doing SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that. Now we're building, WordPress websites, email automations, all kinds of marketing things like that.
Awesome, thank you. And I've known Eagan for a while. I think it's been probably 7, 8 years plus
Mhm.
maybe. And he's a great digital marketer and does a wonderful job with the marketing side of things. So I wanted to bring him on today because in addition to helping his clients do digital marketing, Eagan does a great job of putting out educational content, whether it's online as well as in-person things. You're definitely a good teacher as well. So to kind of frame it up, do you want to tell people who your audience is? Who are the students that you like to teach with your content?
Yeah, usually, if they're buying courses or taking workshops, they're often marketers, sometimes small business owners and entrepreneurs. That's often who we're working with.
Awesome. And when it comes to how you teach them, you kind of alluded to a little bit already, but what is your preferred method to put educational content out there? How do you reach your audience? Again, I know you're a digital marketer, but you do some in-person stuff too. But what is your methodology for how you're reaching your audience through educational content?
Yeah, that's something I stumbled upon earlier in my agency and digital marketing consulting journey was do in-person workshops first. And it's like it's not just that you're working out the kinks, it's sort of like version one. And then from based on the questions your students are asking you or places where they get stuck, you can then make version two. And then oftentimes I'll actually then record those. And so I'll have e-courses that sometimes we sell directly. I've also recently started selling them through partners or on course platforms as well. But I often start with the in-person, and then I'll go back and re-record the actual content, taking into account all the questions and concerns that students had, so that I can have like a cleaner version that people can then take online.
That's a really good point to bring up. This is a mistake I think I see people make when it comes to doing educational content or creating content, is to kind of just start shouting into the ether, and they're not getting that feedback. And I know I started that way. Emma started that way too, of doing more in-person things. In our case, it's because we were in sales. So our sales really was like lunch and learns and kind of workshoppy things that were for prospects. But you bring up a great point that getting that feedback, hearing the questions they're asking, seeing the things they're struggling on helps so much more with creating good educational content. Otherwise, you're just kind of shouting things out there and you don't actually know what's resonating outside of clicks. And as we know, clicks and likes and all those different things can't always tell the truth of what's really effective. Outside of what kind of things might be engaging. So it's an excellent point. Do you want to quick talk to about the podcast series you do and the interviews you do there? 'Cause I think that's another great channel that you've developed for helping reach people and getting other people to have their expertise shared with your audience.
Yeah, thank you. So one of our sort of niches or industries we work with is e-commerce. We also work with local businesses and B2B companies, as you know, James. But on the e-commerce side, I have basically a YouTube series and an audio podcast, a video and audio podcast called What's Working in E-commerce. And what's been kind of nice about this topic is it's a hot topic. E-commerce is often maybe a little ahead of the game in terms of marketing and digital marketing. It's like they really rely on that in terms of traffic, leads, and sales. And so they're kind of pushing the envelope. I'm learning from other people in the e-commerce space, and then I may even bring some of those learnings back and do it for some of the lead gen type stuff we're doing for local and B2B clients too. And so basically, I will record interviews with people. Sometimes they go 10 minutes, sometimes they go 40 minutes. And then I actually have an assistant helps me produce it. We kind of chop it up and have little, YouTube shorts and little pieces we can put on LinkedIn. And then we'll link out to the full episode, on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts and things like that. So that's a way to really stay in front of people on social media and kind of the other channels as well. For a while, we were emailing every single episode out too. We've kind of put a pause on that, but it's not a bad idea to do that as well. So you can reach people across different channels. That could be social media, that could be on email, that could be, people could be finding you organically, potentially through the blog, through the audio podcast, through the video podcast. most of our views actually come from YouTube and LinkedIn. So those have been big channels for us. And like you said, it's a way to stay in front of people. I'm not always, necessarily the expert who's leading something. Sometimes I'm interviewing experts and I'm leading, I'm learning what's working on the bleeding edge or the leading edge of what's happening in an industry or a particular channel, say in digital marketing. And oftentimes I'm taking those learnings and folding them back in. What are we doing for our clients? And what am I teaching about in my courses?
That's great you bring that up too. I think that's a something that good teachers do, right? Is not every teacher knows all the answers to everything. They're often curating information. And that's something I've noticed you do really well with your e-commerce series. I also like you brought up the fact that you also repurpose that content too. And that's something that we always talk about with our customers and our clients is that you can create these really good pieces of content and then repurpose them across either slicing up a video and making it into shorts or turning it into a blog, sharing it as a newsletter. There's tons of different ways to repurpose content and give more legs to the effort you're doing from a content perspective. Do you want to talk now about how you've seen your educational content affect your business? The core business that you do is marketing strategy and executing for your clients. But how have you seen this educational content side of things affect your ability to grow your business?
Yeah, I think the best really was in those early years as I was leading a workshop and I would do like a workshop series, would actually go 12 months, would meet once or twice a month. I would talk about SEO, Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook ads, different months would have different topics. And then we would actually have workshop time for the marketers to sit and learn and work on their own piece. And my team and I could work side by side with them on that. That was huge in the terms of we had many clients then who became, say, retainer clients where we were doing their marketing afterward. And I had some clients even who took it just to kind of see what it was about. And I had a few who said right away, some of the people you actually referred to me, James, and they said, wow, I had no idea how much was entailed in what you guys do. This really is complicated. There's a lot to it. I see now that we should just have you do it. And so in some cases, I think it's valuable to have maybe an intro piece that's higher level. Here's for marketing directors or what have you, leaders maybe. And then for the people who are actually going to be, in the trenches, actually doing the work, pulling the levers, et cetera, maybe then we have the more step-by-step piece. So many clients were sold on the value of what we did by taking the course, and others became clients for many, many years, and many of them are still clients based on those initial courses. And so that did start with the in-person workshops, but then other people found us through the online courses as well.
It's funny you brought that up because I just yesterday, the day before, made a LinkedIn post talking about that, how people are afraid to put out educational content because it might, solve the customer's problem, right? If someone is searching for a problem and you give them the solution through educational content, whether it's a blog or a course or a workshop or a webinar, whatever it might be, people are afraid that they can't give away all the secrets, right? But you brought up an excellent point that 99% of the time they see you do it, they go, oh, I trust this person. They know what they're talking about. That's really helpful. I want to do that. I want them to do that. I'll pay them to do it for me because I don't want to do it myself. But now they trust that you can do it because they've seen you walk through the process. So that's, I think, a big misconception people have is don't give away too much information because you might, kind of solve the customer's problem for them. They're not going to buy from you anymore. But I've seen the same thing as you, that providing the educational content only builds trust and kind of opens the door to more opportunities and actually a bigger sale initially too, right? Instead of having to kind of sell a smaller piece of your services first to build that trust, people are more likely to take that bigger jump into a bigger agreement with you because they have more of that innate trust. So last thing I want to ask is what tips or tip do you have for people who want to get started with creating educational content, whether it's a video series or interview series like you're talking about with what's working with e-commerce or some more educational workshops? What kind of tips or tip would you have for people who want to get started?
Yeah, for me, I need some sort of behavior trap to make sure I actually do something. And so the social pressure of I'm going to show up and I'm going to lead a workshop and I'm going to be in front of people, that always motivated me a lot. Is one, I didn't want to have that room empty, so I would do proper marketing to get people there. And two, I would be ready with enough content to lead for an hour or two like that. And so I think that sort of behavior trap of having something where I'm going to be presenting live is really important. If it's not in person, a webinar or an online training I think can work, but try starting live first, work out the kinks, and then as you perfect it, then you can start having recorded versions that you then package up and treat as lead magnets or sell after that. But try to do the first version or the first couple times live.
That's an awesome tip. And I appreciate that. I haven't heard that tip yet from people who are talking about content, but it is golden. Like, set a date and time, make it public, and it'll make you flex your marketing skills, like you're saying. And my kind of preferred method for that, especially because, in-person events can be a little bit of a bigger burden to set up and organize and all that kind of stuff. And for a lot of people nowadays, obviously your account list might be across the entire country, across the world. But I do agree it's better to have in-person events from the conversational side of things. But just 2 weeks ago, I was talking to someone and they keep saying like, oh, I want to do presentations. Like, we'll just set the date, like put the webinar out there, sign up for, Zoom webinar or do a LinkedIn Live, put it out there so you have 20, 30 people sign up for it. And now you have to create the content. Now you have to get started. And that kind of snowballs. So that's an excellent tip. So if anyone is watching this, is on the sidelines, put a date out there, no longer than 45 days out, Eagan, maybe a little shorter than that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and get started. So, well, thanks, Eagan, for joining. It was super helpful talking to you today and learning about how you become the favorite teacher. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you definitely check me out on LinkedIn. Eagan Heath, EAGAN HEATH. I'm also Eagan.Heath at asymmetric.pro if anybody wants to email me, and they can check out our work there at asymmetric.pro. Thanks so much for having me on, James.
Awesome. Thank you.